Hey, 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 there we are. We are LIVE Live. So you might be able to see, I guess, like right here in the background, there's like a lot going on in my living room. So forgive. I am excited to be here. I see I got one person in here with me. High five. I can't see who you are, but I thank you so much for being here. It's going to be such a good huddle today. So welcome to the Healthy Habits. I'm hoping this is going to become your place to check back in with your health goals, your health practices, your healthy lifestyle. Maybe this is just the beginning for you. You're just starting like to tip your toe into those tepid waters of a healthier lifestyle. And I'm super duper honored and happy that you're here right now and hopefully here each week. So we do this on Sundays at 10 o'clock Pacific, which is 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Central. And I guess that makes it 11 o'clock Mountain. I'm not actually sure. If you want to say hi, you can go ahead and say hello in the chat. I am going to be asking questions and looking for your responses in the chat as we go along. So let's get started. Let's get ready to rumble. Okay. Today's topic is how to do self-care in 2025. But before we get into that, I do want to say thank you. Thank you for being a person on the planet who cares about making themselves healthier, better in an authentic, natural kind of a way. Wholeness is the core of the word health, and so we're here to integrate and to expand and to evolve and to do all of those sorts of things. So I thank you for being a positive force on the planet. You don't have to be, and those of us who care about positive energy and all of that have to really do us, because the people who love destruction are dedicated to the crap. So we got to come through. Yana S in the fucking house. That's my girl. What's up, baby? I'm so happy to see you here. Mwah. So happy to have you here. It's going to be a great one. So we're going to get into it. The first things, I got three questions for you to start it off. The first question for everybody is, who brought their journal? Who has a health journal? If you don't yet, no biggie. But I do encourage you to find some place. I don't care if it's little post-its. I don't care if it's a full-on planner, whatever, notes in your phone. Have a place where you just kind of track your health journey, where you track like what's happening in the health in terms of the part of your life where you're trying to take the best care of yourself. And we got Promenage in house. I love that. Okay, so the first thing is I'm encouraging you to have a health journal. Reminders, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more today. Reminders and checking back in with things that you say that you want is one of the hallmark cornerstones of actually succeeding and therefore living the experiences that you want in your life. So I really want to encourage everybody to find a place to write stuff down where you can re-access it again each week when you come back. Who remembers the three most important letters? Who remembers the three most important letters on your health journey? There are three letters. They're the most important for along your health journey. I will look for an answer on that in just a second. And you might not know. I know Flesh knows. I know for Chromelash knows. And I also want to just compliment you on this idea. She said, "Year, why are you? Oh my God." That's hilarious. No, they're not YOU meaning me. They might be YOU meaning you. The three most important letters. This is the thing that I talked about. One of the things I talked about in our first live huddle. The three most important letters on your health journey are IER, and just remember that: healthier. Whatever you're doing, we're making choices every day. You're going to hear a lot of conflicting information about what's good and what's bad. It cannot be polar like that. We always have to be oriented in a relative kind of a mindset. So as what I'm making is the choice I'm making right now, healthier than another choice I might have made. When we meet here, you guys, we're not going for more than an hour. So we might not even go an hour. I just am here to give you the best that I got, to offer you all the light and love and energy and encouragement and information that I can, and then send you on your way to actually get out there and do it. Because we don't want them doing them better than we're doing us, in the words Gambino. Yes, IER. That's right. Thank you, Yana. Exactly. Those of us. Okay, so we're talking about how to do self-care in 2025 and why does it matter that it's 2025 and we're doing self-care? It could be 2025. It could be 25-25. It could be 15-25. No, there's a difference in this era of existence. There is so much competition right now for your energy. There's so much competition for your attention, for your time, for your ability to care. we live in an age where we can find out about everything, and everything is important, and everything requires our attention, and we've got work, and we've got family, and we've got certain responsibilities, and we've got maybe social things that we'd like to do, or social obligations, all that kind of stuff. And we're always plugged in 24/7, being taxed by, the nature of just being available all the time. So there's a ton of competition for where am I going to spend my attention dollars? Where am I going to spend my care dollars? We can actually become numb by having to care about too many things. But self-care is so crucial to everything else because it changes the equation of your life. So that how to do self-care in 2025 is we have to start with a new equation for how we relate to life. And that's what we're talking about today. So you're right in here. So because there's so much stuff looking, look, you guys, I have note cards and everything. Because there's so much competition for our attention, we can end up running at a deficit. We can end up giving and giving and doing and performing, even if things look like self care, like I'm going to exercise, that's self care. I'm, working more so that I can have more money so that I can take better care of XYZ in my life. That's self care. I'm feeling really down and I really need to pick me up. So I'm having a pint of ice cream. That's self care, or a scoop of ice cream. That's self care. A lot of things can seem like self care, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That will be for you to decide. But what we really want to get is underneath it to, am I running at a deficit, or am I running and in a way that's causing a proliferation of abundance? Am I filling up and overflowing, or am I draining, 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 draining? That is the core reason why self-care is so important in 2025, is because if we're running on an energy and an attention equation that has us getting diminishing returns, getting diminished energy, then we're not going to be able to reap the benefits of positive self-care. So how do we do it? Here's an overview of one of the things that I need you to know. I don't know, is this backwards for you guys since I'm using the front-facing camera? Is this backwards? How do we do it? We have to, number one, have awareness that it matters. We have to take action. We have to develop systems, and then we have to be reminded. Hence the huddle. We have to be reminded, and then it just goes back like that. So the reminder after you initially become aware, and you go through this process, the reminder actually is the awareness step. Once you've done one lap, reminder and awareness are kind of like the same thing. So this is kind of the overview of the how to, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics here. So I have a question for you guys. Who this week did something that was IER? Who this week did something that was healthier? If you did something this week that was healthier, I want you to say, I did, share what it was in the chat if you want to go ahead and do that. Or if you're just watching and you're not here in the live, or you're shy and you don't want to say, really take notice of it. Like, what did I do that was healthier for me this past week? Whether that had to do with how you talk to yourself, how you fed yourself, how you negotiated your relationships, whatever it was, what did you do that was healthier, that was just a step in the right direction? I'd love to see some of that. Crumblesh says, good sign. Shelly says, took care of my hair daily. Yes, honey, that is so good. That is so good. There is something in the ritual of taking care of the hair, taking care of the skin, taking care of the physical body. Just, how maybe cats will like lick and clean themselves and groom themselves. There is something in the ritual of self-grooming that is extremely, extremely self-loving, and a really good way to get in the vibration of self-care. And it should be a rewarding experience. It should be something that actually feels joyful to you. So you want to do it in a way that you actually enjoy the process, and it's not just another thing that you're checking off the list. But Shelly, that makes me so happy. I'm so glad that you're moving in the direction of everything you want. So I have a healthy habits headline here, but I'm going to get into the topic of today, and if we have time at the end, I'll share that interesting factoid that I learned this week that you might want to know as well. Okay, so fundamentally, if you want to know the overview of what we're going to talk about, it is self-care in 2025 is about developing a different orientation. Okay, so we have to become a self-care oriented person. That's the real key. We got to get underneath everything and we have to become self care oriented. So, what does that mean? I'm talking about it in four parts. One, we have to become self considerate. Two, we have to analyze if what we're doing is self destructive or self creative. Three, we have to embody the principle of fill before flow. I have to fill up before I flow out. I have to take in and make sure I'm at a good level before I give, right? And then the step four is to renegotiate as needed. And whether that's something you're renegotiating inside of yourself or something that you're renegotiating with your environment or people in your environment, those are the four steps that we're going to talk about today in depth. So, the four steps again, we're going to go over them. Become self considerate, analyze if what you're doing is actually self destructive or if it's self creative, fill before flow, and renegotiate as needed. All right, everybody got it? Say I got it. Let me know in the chat if you got it. Is this making sense? Everybody got it? I'm watching the chat. Oh, somebody got it. Nobody got it. There must be a delay because I know somebody got it. I know Yana got it. Thank you, love. Okay, perfect. Yana got it. Chromalesh got it. Yes, consider yourself. Exactly. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about that. We're going to talk about that one, Chromalesh. Shelly got it too. Okay, perfect. So being self-considerate, this is a tough one. This is a tough one for people who are naturally givers. And when I make these lists, see if you recognize yourself in anything that I'm describing. People who are givers naturally, parents, people who are in caregiving roles, can be very hard to be self-considerate when you're in a role of taking care of your parents, taking care of pets, taking care of children, taking care of mate, taking care of. So caretaking, caretakers, parents, and really even fundamentally women who are the nurturers of the planet and everything can have a hard time considering themselves, but also undersung men who are in a provider role can be extremely self-sacrificing and have a hard time balancing considering themselves with how they want to show up in that role out of love. A lot of the reason why we are not self-considerate is we're trying to be loving to someone else and forgetting that being loving, we don't get to skip over ourselves. Another aspect of that I touched on just now is about being in roles. So we are beings, we're human beings, but a lot of times we are in roles. We're performing in roles. I'm a human being, but I'm in the role right now of a mother, or I'm in the role of a caregiver, or I'm in the role of, you see what I'm saying? So roles have, defined kind of boundaries and stuff, and they don't need fuel. They don't need love. They don't need things that beings need. Beings need to be considered. And so in 2025, I want you to really embrace this principle of pausing to consider yourself as you're participating in all the roles and identities and different hats that we wear on the planet. Because if you're a being in a role and you're taking care of the role, but not taking care of the being, in time, that being is going to become so depleted that their ability to perform the role is going to be diminished. And not only that, their energy and their light and the what would you call it? The immaterial gifts that they're able to give and provide to themselves and others will be really diminished, because that's not natural. It's not how things are supposed to flow. Speaking of natural and how things are supposed to flow, I'll give you an example. Flowers have a very subtle negative charge. Bumblebees, or I don't know, just the bumble variety, but bees have, because they're flying and doing all this magical stuff with their tiny little wings, they develop a slightly positive charge because they lose electrons as they fly. So flowers and bees, a bee has lost some electrons and they need some more, and the flower has plenty to give and they have that slight charge. They can sense that magnetism, that they have something to give to each other. And the pollen jumps onto the bee's body, from what I understand, like at a tiny little level. And the bee gets what the bee needs, and the flower gets what the flower needs, and everybody's happy. The bee flies away. Now the next bee comes along. This flower is now doing self-care in the way that nature would allow it, this flower is now doesn't have the flower now doesn't have the same kind of slightly negative charge that it had before. So this bee goes by the flower and says, "Oh, that flower is not ready to give yet," and goes to the next flower. Nature is all about perfect systems. So we have to tune in to what the healthiest, best way to do things is. And a lot of times, nature will give us a big clue about that. So, being considerate of ourselves, it can be hard for people who are in certain roles. We got to remember to take care of the being that's doing the role. So, it's just like looking at a gas gauge before you take a trip. So, if I am getting ready to go 5 blocks away and buy some groceries, and I look at my gas gauge and it's half full, I know some of y'all will be like, "Oh my God, I gotta get gas." I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people. I know my car. I know my car. I'm fine. I'm definitely one of those. But if I'm going, 5 blocks away, and I have half a tank of gas, I got what it takes to do the job, right? I've checked my gas gauge. I know what the job is basically, and I have enough. We don't do that so often when we are asked to give. "Oh, hey, come to my birthday party. Oh, hey, could I just borrow your XYZ? Could you do this? Could you do that? Could you do this? Could you do that?" A lot of times we don't stop to say, "Do I have it to give? Do I actually have it to give? Is this going to be depleting me, or is this something that can come from my overflow?" So definitely start looking. And when we get into the people who are the most likely, you'll be surprised when we get, I think it's the number 4 here. I'm going to talk about how some of the most giving people in the world are in the biggest trouble because of this, um, and can kind of cause trouble trying to be too giving. Okay, so the moral of this story is it begins inside, and we got to do the first step that I told you at the beginning is of if we have become aware if we have enough to give before we take the action. Okay, awareness is key, which is why I'm so happy you're here. Okay, so second thing, so that was become self-considerate. That is step 1. Step 2, consider whether what I'm about to do is actually self-destructive or if it is self-creative. I have developed a little matrix here to talk about this. So what I mean, so a lot of times this has to do with coping versus thriving, which we'll get into in a little bit. But we have a little continuum here. We have the self-destructive side of whatever I'm going to do, and we have the self-creative side of what I'm going to do. So I'm treating self-creative here as like, is this something that I am able to do to create more of what's going to be healthy for me, or to become who I want to become in the world? Is this adding to, my zhuzh? Is this making me more authentic? Is this making me more of something positive, right? Self-creative versus self-destructive. We all understand what that is. Now, up here, I put role defining, and down here, I couldn't come up with a good word. It's like role rejecting. So, for instance, the role of a good mom is somebody who sacrifices everything for her kids and knows no end and doesn't need sleep and da 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 da, and basically just, lays herself out just to be used for the benefit of the next generation. That could be like how a person has the role of mother defined in their own mind, because all these role definitions are up for grabs. It's what society says, it's what your family said, it's what you learned, it's what you decided it's going to be. But in this role, let's say that's how a person might have that role. And then role rejecting would be a mother who doesn't do everything for kids, or it could be a really neglectful parent or something like that, but somebody who's rejecting what the role says that they should do. So we're all always moving around in all these different matrices. So I'll give you some examples. So we're stopping to notice if what I'm doing is going to be self-destructive or if it's going to be self-creative. So self-destructive and role defining is the self-sacrificing parent that I talked about, right? They're destroying themselves, but they're living up to the role so well. Everyone goes, "Oh, that's so fantastic." Is it? Is it? Then we have the opposite side here, which is a role rejecting self-destructive, which might be a drug addicted parent who's neglecting the child, right? So it's self-destructive, but they're not living up to the role. That's down here in this quadrant. Over here in this quadrant, we'd have someone who's self-creative as an example, and role rejecting. So what I mean there is they're doing something quote unquote positive, right? And so they're over here in self-creation because they're so ambitious, and I don't know, they have all these political ambitions or all these business ambitions or all these whatever, pretend this is just an example. They have all these ambitions. They're creating themselves to be something really positive, but they're the ever ambitious parent who is damaging the family because of it. Sit down and shut up, and you're going to dress how I say you're going to dress because we're going to be making a public appearance and everything, or whatever it is. Or you're so stressed that you come home and you're mean to everybody in your house. Well, yeah, you're becoming a great doctor, lawyer, attorney, whatever. You're becoming a great thing, but you're not filling the role, right? So these are just some ways that these things play off of each other. Having a human being in a role, self-destructive or self-creative. Now up here, we have a person who is self-creative and also fulfilling a role. This could be a person who models healthy self-care as a part of the energy regeneration in their life so that they can nurture and provide for their family long term. And they're not hurting people as they're creating themselves in the way that is healthy for them and also filling a role. So obviously, I'm wanting us to develop the capacity to do a lot of our stuff in this upper right hand quadrant where we're self-creative and still able to fulfill our roles. But there's room in here for self-care because in actually fulfilling a role or being a great leader or a great role model, we're going to need to be able to model self-care because again, in nature, the system is that the better I'm able to take care of myself, the more I can do for others. You have a plant, right? It is not going to bear fruit if it doesn't have enough nutrients to do it. It has to have more than enough so that it can make seeds, so that it can make fruit. So then guess what? Everybody gets to eat. Not only does everybody get to eat, which benefits everybody, but then the seeds get spread around the earth and more trees grow, which benefits the tree. That kind of tree gets to be more prolific on the planet. And that person got to eat, and now everybody else gets to eat because there's more trees. Nature makes perfect systems. So when we find ourselves running ourselves into the ground, not doing self-care, not being in the orientation of a person who has a self-care mindset, we're running afoul of nature. It's never going to go good. it's never going to be sustainable for long because these are perfect systems that we're a part of. So we got that. Everybody got self-destructive versus self-creative. We understand the matrix. Let me know in the chat if we're understanding the matrix. I'm going to do the coping versus thriving part right here. Okay, so let's see. Shelly says, got it. I think that's what Shelly said that earlier. All right, I hope y'all are still getting it and feeling the love and feeling the magic. All right, so the third principle that we talked about here. So one was what? Consider ourselves, develop pause to consider whether you have the fuel. Two, is this self-creative or is this self-destructive? How am I negotiating my role here, my role as a friend, whatever, versus my own, health and well-being versus, and me becoming what I want to become versus self-destruction. So the third aspect that we're talking about is to learn the principle of fill and practice the principle of fill before flow. Fill yourself up before you flow out to others. But guess what? You can't fill before you flow if you don't know. Hey, if you don't know yourself, you haven't paused and actually sat with yourself and paid attention to yourself and noticed yourself. If you had a child, you would pay attention to them and you would notice what their interests are, what lights them up, what things are difficult for them, et cetera, et cetera. So you would really pay attention as you care, self-care, as you care for that child to notice what makes that child tick. We need to do the same thing. We get to do the same thing for ourselves. What actually fills me up? There's the thing about introverts and extroverts, that extroverts are people who genuinely get filled up by being engaged with other people. And then there are people who can get up and get around other people, and then they need to go home by themselves. Or there are introverts who really get full by being in their own thoughts and being in their own minds. And there's, a mix and probably continuing with that too. But that's just an example of something that fills you up. So this is really about what genuinely fills you up. So maybe for you, it's listening to music or having time alone or taking care of your beauty stuff or listening to things that make your imagination go. It could be so many different things. One of the things that really fills me up is hit the gym. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I don't feel like myself if I'm not really able to exercise. It's just one of my things. Now, does that take energy? Yes, it takes energy. Do I need to have enough fuel in the tank to do it? Yes. But when I do it, it actually creates a synergistic effect in my life. I'm more me. I'm more available. I'm more up. because that is something that actually fills me up. So for you, it could be music, it could be sleep. And sometimes we're in a role and the benefit that we get from that role fills us up. Like, oh my God, I just have so much pride in being able to do this for my family. Or I just get such a joy. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I get such joy out of doing great work product. Actually, really, that does it for me. So fill yourself up before you flow out to others. Now, there are people who get full and really love like getting over on people, but it's what it is for you as a person. And like I said before, I just really feel like, especially in this era that we're in right now, when things are becoming so polarized socially, those of us who have an inclination toward um, wholeness, healing, health, positivity, love, light, goodness, all of that kind of thing, we really need to step it up and make a showing and show up in the world as well, because other people who have really opposite values are doing their thing, you know? So that's one of the most important things I think that we can also learn about self-care is if you feel like you are a decent human being on the planet, take care of yourself because we need you. We need you. The planet needs you. Okay. So in looking at what fills you up, I want you to be able to make a distinction. When I think this thing fills me up, is this something that's actually just helping me cope? Or is it something that's actually helping me thrive? So, or cope versus fill me up, right? So, this is the difference between surviving and thriving. And I'm going to give you an example in a second. So, a lot of times we learn, so an example could be I drink to relax. That is a coping behavior. It doesn't really fill me up. It's a high price to pay to get that benefit, but it's a coping strategy I learned along my trail of life. So a lot of times when we're in coping strategies, we've experienced some trauma, we've experienced some stress, and we figured out a solution. It was a short term temporary solution that worked for us for a time. But when we engage in it now, the price we pay for it is a little bit too high. So in the example of a person who drinks in order to relax, that person has figured out it is effective. I'm all stressed. I'm all high strung. I drink. I relax. Well, you're paying a high price for it. It's like paying. It's like predatory lending rates, right? It's like what was that phrase about compound interest? A person who truly understands compound interest will never pay it, but always put themselves in position to get it. It's something like that. That's kind of how this is. So I'm doing something that is kind of taxing and kind of unhealthy in order to get a result that is like positive and generative and good. It's great to be relaxed, but the price I had to pay for it was taking something that is costing me health wise, it's costing me relationship wise, and other ways like that. Coping, survivor, or creator. Ooh, I love that. Chroma says, are you a coping survivor or are you in a creator mode? Exactly. Being in creator mode is a great way to think about handling your self-care because creativity is generative, right? Regeneration, all of that. I love that. Okay, so as opposed to I could drink to relax, or I could read a book to relax, or I could listen to soothing music to relax, or I could hum a tune to relax. I could play the piano to relax. I could take up a hobby to relax. I could, you get the idea, and you have to just you get to, I should say, decide for yourself: is this IER for me? Is this healthier for me? Because people will say, oh, it's bad to sit and be a couch potato. Well, maybe it's IER, health ER, for that person to sit on the sofa and zone out to something that takes their mind off of things for this season in their life right now. Maybe that's better than coming home and drinking and getting in a fight with their mate. Or maybe, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe that's a step on their way to actually dealing with what's troubling them. Because the thing about coping strategies is that there's trauma underneath, there's pain underneath. And the pain doesn't go away. It's just going to keep oozing out until we actually heal it, become more whole. Uh, oh, is that right? Sue Morter it talks about coping survivor or creator. Oh, I didn't know that. Sue Morter, great. She's a second generation chiropractor. She wrote an incredible book called The Energy Codes. High recommend for anybody who's interested in a great book. She talks a lot about the protective personality versus the soulful self. Fantastic. And she does some great yoga. My favorite yoga classes are ones that I took online with her. Okay, so we got it, right? We're going to number one, consider ourselves. We're going to number two, look at is this self creative, is this self destructive? We're number three, going to learn to fill ourselves up genuinely before we flow out. And then four is about renegotiation. So when we become aware and we are ready to take some action before we build our systems and get reminded and keep going, we become aware that I don't have the energy for this. You're going to maybe hear a thought in your mind. And also, thoughts are not our own. We are consciousness receiving thoughts and entertaining them and analyzing them and experiencing the effects of what if that were true as we entertain thoughts. But a thought could come across your mind that says, you're not allowed to say no. It's too late to cancel. Whatever it is, you need to do this. Your kid's not going to be okay unless you do this. Whatever it is. So you're going to have a peanut gallery that's going to talk to you. It could be other people in your life who are in your ear about how messed up it is that you're doing this, that you're doing that. And you will have to renegotiate. You're going to have to renegotiate. It may not always go great, even inside yourself. But at some point, and it is a part of self-care, at some point we have to learn to know ourselves and express ourselves and be able to stand in what is true for us and be honest in conversation with those that are close to us. And if there's too much friction, maybe it will change the relationship. Maybe you're not a match for the person that you're trying to negotiate this situation with, ultimately. We're very, very trained not to be selfish. A lot of us are trained not to be selfish, especially the givers and people I was talking about before. But how do we find that balance? Because if we're in an environment that takes a lot from us that we can't afford to give, is it selfish of us to want to maintain enough of what we have so that we can fill up, so that we can down the road give from our abundance? Maybe in that way, and maybe in a different way, and maybe to that person, and maybe not to that person, maybe to someone else, maybe to the world, whatever. Is it more selfish to do that? Or is it more selfish of the person who's saying, no, don't stop, don't do what you know you need to do, take care of what I think you should take care of instead? Now, I understand as well, or is that selfish, right? I understand as well, we make agreements and it's hard to go back and renegotiate an agreement. But hopefully, as we lean toward a healthier and more holistic and whole world full of people who are healing and whole and healthier, right? People will be able to hear your experience and appreciate and allow you to have that experience and then be inside themselves similarly situated and tell their truth, and there can be a positive interaction, and hopefully new life can come out of it. If you again look at nature, new life comes out of old, right? We have a corn husk that grows up, and then once it's grown out of that part of the leaves, those leaves fall away, and then the next, and then the next. So hopefully our relationships are constantly regenerating and growing with us as we evolve and develop. And remember, we're talking about self-care. It's self-care. It's not them care. It's self-care. So you'll find your balance as you're learning to renegotiate. But I wanted to tell you this, and this is our last bit, and we're doing so great. It's only like 10:33. A lot of times people go way over, or a lot of times the people who go way overboard giving to others do it because they are not trained in the habit forming. They are not trained in the habit and have not adopted the orientation, which is what we're talking about today, of caring for the being that they really, really are. And this is the piece I said I was going to call some people out, and it's not a negative call out. It's a call for self-care for everybody who feels this is them. The most giving and resentful people are often the ones who are trained out of their own self-exploration and self-care so early and or so thoroughly that they've developed a whole economy around doing for others so that they can be safe, applauded, appreciated, connected, etc. I'm talking about people who are loving and giving and generous and do it so much that they don't have anything and need to get from others. And so these are the most resentful people on the planet a lot of times because they've given too much. Resentment happens when you've given more than you can afford to give. And so they have, for a lifetime, given more than they can afford to give, hooked up with people that they're kind of trading, like, I'll do this, and they don't ever say, so you'll do that for me. Typically, they won't say it. But when they need something and other people don't show up for them, because they spent their whole life giving to others, giving to others, giving to others. And guess who? A lot of times we do connect with other people who are happy to take, 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 and not have to give and not have to give. And this is great. And this is great. And so then when you go to that person to renegotiate and say, I need this, they go, wow, about that? And so they're more resentful. But it's self-care. So are you going to choose to stay in that situation and stay in those kinds of relationships that might be draining for you? It might be self-destructive for you. Or are you going to learn a new way of being, become self-considerate, develop a new orientation, become self-creative, and take care of yourself? I think this idea of us taking care of each other is great, but again, it has to come out of the overflow. Cannot be taken care when you're not really in a position to give. And a person who is talked out of getting to know themselves, talked out of their self-care, talked out of their own isness, and trained out of that early and learned to cope early, or even if it happened later, have learned into a way of being where I have to fill in the blank for others so that they'll do this for me. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And that's not how we're doing self-care in 2025. So again, we're going to pause and notice what's going on inside. And I would say if we were going to talk about, in conclusion, how to do self-care in 2025, I hope that you will do it with curiosity and kindness for yourself and for others, but mostly for you. So you guys, thank you for coming. Let me know if you have any thoughts, any questions, any feedback, anything. That's what I wanted to say. That's what I want to say. And I thank you so much for listening. And I hope it will feed you. I also have a headline or two if you want to hear that. But I would love to, before we wrap up, know if you have any comments, any questions, if any of that resonated, if it was totally confusing. Any feedback that you have on that would be great. And let me know if you want to hear these healthy headlines. And then we're going to get on about our Sunday. So let's see what people are saying. Not much. Well, I hope I didn't put y'all to sleep. Well, maybe you needed a nap. That's self-care too. All right, Chroma's ready for some headlines. All right. So I wanted to make so the headlines, when you come to the huddle, you guys, the headlines are just going to be things I listen to, health related blogs and topics and videos and stuff all the time. It's just something that I do for joy, something that fills me up, something that's entertaining for me. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick and put you guys onto is understanding cholesterol. So if you or someone that you care for, that you love, has been told that they have high cholesterol, a long time, the thinking was for a really long time that eating high cholesterol foods, high fat foods and stuff like that were, that is what caused high cholesterol. Remember, back in the day, it was like low fat this, low fat that. And, since then, it's arguably gotten clearer that cholesterol, first of all, the body makes 85% of the cholesterol that we have. So it's made, I believe, in the liver. We make all this cholesterol. So only about 15% of the cholesterol that we have is coming from our food. So it's not really even the main source is the food. But cholesterol is produced by the body to it's like a Band-Aid, right? Like a soothing thing that you put over something that is burning or hurting or having a problem. And so the body produces cholesterol a lot of times in response to, this is what I was learning this week, a lot of times in response to insulin levels that are too high and things like that. So what ends up happening is that the liver, from too much insulin, too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much starch, too much carbs, too much preservatives, processed foods, this, that, the other stuff that the body can't really handle. It goes through the liver. The liver's trying to process it all. The liver's like, I don't know what to do with this, or I can't handle it, or the body can't get it out. The liver can't process it out, and the rest of the body can't get it out. So then the liver and the body ends up making cholesterol, packaging it up. We wouldn't get fatty liver, we run out of space here. The body's putting it in the lining. So we have this is something that was brand new this week. I always thought that the blood vessels, when people would get clogged arteries and stuff like that, I always thought it's like, okay, here you have that tube where the blood is supposed to be running through. I always thought that the stuff got here. Apparently, according to, and I'll tell you the doctor's name in a second that I was watching her stuff and learning this from. So apparently it's not so much it's happening on the edges of the tube as that it's happening inside the walls of the tube itself. So the tube might still be like this, but the walls of the tube in between here, like the membrane of it or whatever, that starts getting full of cholesterol that's holding stuff that's bad for the body that the liver can't process out, or that the body can't process out. So the actual sides of the actual walls start getting, impeded because of that. And it makes the flow of blood, then the passageway for the flow of blood to get smaller. It causes that to get smaller. And then we get higher blood pressure, and we get, all the things that happen from high cholesterol. So I just want to say, if you are having, or you or somebody that is having cholesterol issues, really, really consider learning more about that from people who understand it. The person that I was watching is called Dr. Boz, B-O-Z, and she's an MD. I know a lot of people, like somebody who actually has a medical licensure to hear this kind of stuff from, which is totally understandable for sure. Dr. Boz, and she's on YouTube. And her area of expertise is really helping people with metabolic syndrome, diabetes, et cetera, to heal that and turn their bodies around using different things that are available behavior-wise. And she makes that path really easy for people. So she doesn't know I exist. I just wanted to share that in case that is something that's important to you. And that's all I got. You guys ready to go? Should we get out of here? What do y'all plan for Sunday? I'm going to go get a really nice coffee table. That's my plan. All right. So I love you guys. I thank you so much for being here. I'm going to be back here again next Sunday. I don't know yet what I'm going to talk about. If you have a request for something that you would like the topic, thank you for the hearts. If you have a request for something that you'd like to have a conversation on the topic be about, feel free to let me know about that as well. And that's it. I thank you so much for taking time for your health and for joining me. I hope that you will make this your weekly place to check in with your health goals, to check in with what matters to you in terms of your health, your healing, and just really becoming the purest presentation of yourself on the planet, because we need you. All right. Love you. Big kisses and bye-bye. Ending this live. End stream. Yes. There we go. Bye, guys. Love and kisses.